Let's jump right in. Today, we're taking a deep dive into this fascinating ancient text, the story of the 500 children. It's a classic piece of Buddhist literature that reveals so much about human psychology, invisible connections, and honestly, how quickly we can misjudge a situation. It might be centuries old, but as you're going to see, the human behaviors it describes, they are totally timeless. Okay, let's get into it. Right off the bat, we're hit with this huge central mystery. Why on earth did 500 children walk right past and just completely ignore the Buddha? Let that sink in for a second. We're talking about literally the most revered, respected figure of his time, walking with this massive entourage of monks. You would absolutely expect crowds to part, right? People offering everything they have. But instead, this massive group of kids gives him the ultimate cold shoulder. So what's going on here? Section 1, the 500 Children's Suites. Let's set the scene. We're traveling back to a festival day on the vibrant streets of ancient Rajagaha. Picture a day just filled with innocence, pure excitement, and a whole lot of treats. So here's how these paths collide. In the morning, the Buddha and his 500 monks enter the city for alms. It's this very serene, solemn procession. Meanwhile, mid-morning, 500 local kids come rushing out of the city, totally buzzing with festival energy and carrying these massive baskets of sweets. By late morning, these two huge crowds finally intersect on the road. It's this crazy meeting of supreme spiritual authority and just sheer chaotic childhood exuberance. And right here is where the tension just spikes. The kids stop. Now, they're well behaved, so they do politely bow in respect to the Buddha and his monks. But then, they just keep walking. They clutch their baskets tight and offer absolutely nothing. Not a single sweet goes to the monks, who, by the way, rely entirely on the community's generosity to eat. It's a really stunning moment of just polite indifference. Moving on to Section 2, the crisis of decision. Now, this is a moment that could so easily be seen as a massive insult. You can almost feel the tension, right? How is the enlightened master going to react to being completely passed over by a bunch of kids? Well, the Buddha's reaction is actually entirely unexpected. While his followers are probably feeling super slighted, the Buddha simply steps aside. He calmly tells his monks, hey, go sit and wait quietly under the shade of that nearby tree. And then he drops this really cryptic hint. He tells them not to worry because the true owners of these sweets are actually coming up from behind them. It's like he has this omniscient understanding of a dynamic that literally nobody else can see yet. Which brings us to part 3, unexplainable joy. To really understand what the Buddha foresaw here, we need to shift gears. We have to dive deep into the subjective, emotional experience of these 500 children, because a massive shift is about to happen as a new figure enters the scene. So, walking far behind the main group of monks is a single senior monk named Mahakassapa Thera. He's just walking quietly down the road, completely unassumingly, but for the kids, his arrival is like a lightning bolt. He is the sudden catalyst for a total behavioral shift. Just listen to this translation directly from the source text. It says, love arose and their bodies overflowed with the power of joy. This perfectly captures the children's perspective in this moment. This wasn't some logical, calculated choice they were making. They weren't thinking about religious hierarchy or who they should respect more. It was visceral. It was instinctual. The exact second they laid eyes on Mahakassapa, this inexplicable, overwhelming love completely hijacked their senses. And man, their physical reaction absolutely matches that immense joy. Think about it. These are the exact same kids who just politely nodded at the Buddha a minute ago. Now, they frantically drop their baskets in the dirt. They drop to their knees, doing a full, deeply reverent prostration. And then, with pure, uncontainable enthusiasm, they thrust their baskets forward, offering absolutely all of their sweets to this one specific monk. It is just a massive outpouring of sudden devotion. Section 4. Echoes of discontent. Let's flip the camera and look at how the other monks are reacting. While this is clearly a beautiful, joyful moment for the children, human nature is messy. We're looking at a classic case of the Rashomon effect here. This is absolutely crucial to understand how wildly perspectives can differ. On one side, we have the internal reality of the kids, pure, innocent generosity driven by unexplainable joy. But, looking from the outside in, the observing monks don't see that at all. They just see superficial judgment, blatant favoritism, and what looks like a terrible, almost scandalous disrespect to their leader. The text actually gets into the gossipy murmurs rippling through the monks, and they are highly critical. They're complaining that the kids acted purely on favoritism, just picking a face they liked.
They are deeply offended that the children blatantly ignored the Supreme Buddha, bypassed all the senior monks, and unfairly showered all this preference onto just Mahakassapa. It so perfectly illustrates that human tendency we all have to judge people's actions based entirely on surface-level optics.
Part 5. The lens of compassion. So how do we reconcile this tension? We have to look through the Buddha's view. We need to analyze this through the compassionate, completely non-judgmental eyes of the sage.
Notice the striking contrast in wisdom here? The monks are trapped in the immediate physical world. They see a scandalous act of favoritism, right? But the sage's view, the Buddha's view, transcends the immediate moment. He doesn't see an insult. He sees the blooming of deep, invisible, historical connections. He's looking right at the hidden architecture of human relationships.
To really get this, we have to talk about what's actually happening, a karmic bond. Now, in the context of this ancient text, a karmic bond is a profound, almost magnetic connection. It's a pure love rooted in shared past lives that invisibly dictates our present feelings, our instant attractions, and yeah, even our biases. The Buddha understood that the children's bias wasn't malicious. It wasn't some intentional slight against him. It was simply the resonance of an ancient, shared love echoing into the present moment. And this is just a brilliant illustration of the ultimate enlightened mindset. The text explicitly points out that the Buddha feels zero envy here. He harbors no resentment toward a single soul. Because he sees the truth of the children's overwhelming joy, he completely validates their feelings without taking their actions personally for even a second. He doesn't need their sweets to validate his worth. So how does this whole thing resolve? Mahakassapa steps up as the perfect bridge. He gently accepts the children's devotion, totally honoring their feelings. But then, he uses their specific love for him to facilitate a much broader generosity. He tells the kids, hey, take these sweets and share them with the Buddha and the monks waiting under the tree. And because that instruction comes from the person they adore so much, the kids happily fulfill the offering. Everyone gets fed, the community is united, and a potential crisis turns into this incredible lesson in harmony. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a thought. Look, we might not all believe in literal past lives, but the psychology at play here is universal. Have you ever felt an inexplicable, instant bond with a total stranger? Or, on the flip side, have you ever harshly judged a situation, kind of like those complaining monks, without knowing the profound, invisible history driving the people involved? The story of the 500 children is such a great reminder to look past surface-level optics and try to approach each other with a little more curiosity and a lot more compassion. Until next time, keep seeking to understand the deeper story.